wedding planning podcast.
Hiya, we're on episode 4 of Wildly Wed, the real wedding planning podcast. I'm Keshira of Keshira Creative Events.
And I'm Vicky of Spot On Ceremonies.
Hey, and today we're talking all about ceremonies. So we're going to talk, well, really, this is Vicky's world. We're going to talk about how you have your ceremony. Are you sitting, are you dancing, are you standing? Everything. The legal bits, the fun bits.
Everything, the whole shebang.
Everything about ceremony, doing it however you want to. We also, this episode, have a top supplier tip from Jason Williams Photography. And we have some exciting new episodes coming soon.
Ooh, little drum roll.
Specials. And they will be video pods with some lovely supplier guests. So keep an eye out for those. But let's talk about ceremonies.
Let's.
Vicky, like we said, you're a celebrant. This is what you do. You know it. You love it. What is the ceremony? Why is it important?
It's so important because if you think about it, without a ceremony, your wedding really is just a party. Nothing wrong with that. Goodness knows we all love a party.
I do love a party.
But, you know, the ceremony is what everything else hangs on when it comes to a wedding. It's that moment in time where you can publicly acknowledge and declare and honour the commitment that you're making to each other. So in short, the ceremony is really special. And the whole day and the lead up to it, it all has the ceremony at its heart. So I would say just don't sell it short. However you want to do it, don't underestimate it, don't sell it short. And I think important also to just run through very briefly the legal aspect of getting married. So in England and Wales, you can get married or form a civil partnership if you are 18 or over, not already married or in a civil partnership, not closely related. Now, same-sex couples can convert a civil partnership into a marriage in England or Wales. There are different rules if you want to get married or form a civil partnership in Scotland, Northern Ireland. So do your homework. And if you're unsure, just look at the relevant government website. So get across the legal aspects. That is kind of important.
Okay, and so that's the legal side of things, but you can also legally get married whether you have a faith leader or you could have a registrar. So there's other ways of doing it. And I know that faith is really important for some people. And some people might just want to do a quick legal ceremony, which, again, absolutely fine. But whatever type of ceremony you opt for, there are legal requirements. And you do want to make sure that at the end of the whole wedding planning journey, I guess you are legally married.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you are faith-led, then your minister or faith leader will be able to guide you through that process as well.
Completely. Absolutely. And, if you're going with a registrar, and even for a celebrant-led service, you will still have to do the paperwork with the registrar. They will help you and support you, but just make sure that you are across the legal requirements of marriage. And as I said earlier, if you are looking at a destination wedding out of the UK, do make sure that you are really thorough in your exploration of that, because every country, or certainly many countries, will have different rules for that.
Yeah, and I guess, it's about knowing that you're legally married in the country you live in at the end of the day.
Absolutely, absolutely. So if you have faith, then obviously you want to go to your faith leader or minister. If you hate fuss and you just want a really simple ceremony, then yes, absolutely, a registrar. But if you want all the feels and you want to involve people, to incorporate bespoke rituals and tell your love story and really, really make the occasion super special, then I think the celebrant is a way forward for you. And last year, interestingly, the biggest trend, according to Hitched, with couples getting married was celebrant-led ceremonies. So I think it's fair to say that couples are placing more value on their ceremony.
Well, yeah, I think it's all about who you are, and I guess the kind of weddings that I work with and the people I work with, the reason they come and work with me is because they want to tell their story. They want to do it their way. They don't want to just follow what everyone's always done or follow the traditions to the T. There'll be traditions involved, but it's a lovely way. Having a celebrant means it's about you.
It's about you, and it's, completely free of any restriction that you might otherwise encounter going either down a faith-led ceremony or with the registrar.
So if I want to do that then, Vicky, I know I want the celebrant-led ceremony. What's the simplest way that I can do the legal bit.
Okay, so for a celebrant-led ceremony, you must visit the registrar. Your intent to marry in the registry office in your local area must be achieved. So you need to do that. And at that meeting, you will then be able to arrange a basic, what's known as a 2x2 ceremony. Now,
not a 4x4.
Not a 4x4, a 2x2. Now, typically, this sort of ceremony isn't always offered unless you request it. I guess because they don't make much money from it, because the typical costs, depending on where you are, so it can range from around 56 quid to just over 100.
Okay.
You take 2 witnesses with you and you sign the paperwork. Now, you don't have to say vows or exchange rings. You just have to use the official legal declaration.
Okay.
You may find that registry offices only offer a 2x2 on certain days of the week or on certain days of the month. You may have to go to a different registry office in your district to actually do that. Some registrars will only allow you to book that kind of ceremony a few months, sometimes 3 months in advance. So get your ducks in a row. Yeah. It's not a one size fits all, and it does vary from area to area, from town to town even sometimes. But just get your ducks in a row. One couple whose wedding I did last year actually got married legally, did the paperwork 6 months ahead of their wedding.
Yeah.
Because they
I've
just
seen
wanted
that.
to know it was done,
Yeah.
And they did it on their lunch break. They met and went into the registry office, did it on their lunch break. Now, the other thing to bear in mind is when you go to the registry office, it is not possible to use any religious words or hymns, no mention of anything that has any religious context. And that's law. You can't, there's no wriggle room with that at all. Cool. So just be aware of that. But yeah, I would say get your paperwork, which is what that is. Get it done as soon as you can and be on top of that. And then you're free to focus entirely on the big day.
And I guess, I've never really thought about this until we were talking about it the other day. But having a ceremony on a different day is, absolutely fine. You complete your paperwork one day, you have the ceremony another day. And what we were talking about the other day is when you register your baby's birth, you don't have the christening or the naming ceremony on the day you do the legal paperwork.
Absolutely not.
When you register a death, you don't have the funeral the same day. So why is it I guess it's just tradition and it's something that's always been around, but we need to start thinking about marriage the same. You can do the legal paperwork, but you don't have to have the ceremony.
No, absolutely not.
On the same day.
And I think that's exactly where it's heading. People are thinking differently. They want different things. I mean, for instance, if you have a couple, as I did last year, who come from very different backgrounds. So he has a faith of sorts that he wanted to acknowledge, but there was no scope to do that within a civil ceremony. Mm-hmm. It wouldn't have been right. He felt that he wasn't a regular attender to his place of worship, so it wasn't right to approach the faith leader, not entirely comfortable there. But with a celebrant-led ceremony, they were able to include reference to and acknowledge the significance of faith in his life. And she was able to do something that represented her complete sort of, indifference to faith, but that really celebrated their love and her respect for him and his faith.
And I did exactly this. I got legally married one week, and then the next week we had a celebrant-led ceremony for our wedding, but also because I'm of dual heritage, and although faith isn't part of that for me, my heritage was important.
Yeah, absolutely. Culturally, you wanted to do that.
You can't do that in a legal setting, unfortunately, and I didn't want to do it in a faith setting, so therefore a celebrant was the way forward. And so I think there's so many reasons and there's so many ways that if people stop and think, what is it that marriage means to you?
Yeah.
That's how I think you can be guided then.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, it is that thing of it feels our marriage laws in this country are ancient. They've not really been updated apart from things like same-sex marriage and civil ceremonies. There've been no sort of tinkering with them for centuries. And so as a result, we have a rather prescriptive system. And I think in a modern world, that's out of step now.
Yeah, and I think we do need to be careful, don't we, about the wording that's used online sometimes and the wording that's used in different places?
It certainly has come to the attention of some celebrants that some registry offices are saying that they can host a celebrant-style wedding.
Now, tell me, what does that mean?
Yeah, exactly. So you have to think very carefully about that. Celebrants and registrars have different skill sets, and with great respect, I know some really great registrars. But a celebrant, most celebrants are experienced or trained in public speaking. They know about holding space. They know about creating really bespoke ceremonies from scratch. So a lot of celebrants I know have really sort of transferable skills. So journalistic backgrounds, performing backgrounds, teaching backgrounds. They have things that they can bring to a celebrant-led party that, with great deal of respect, I don't know that registrars who, would be able to offer. So one couple I know was offered a celebrant-style ceremony by their registrar. What that actually translated into, when they did a bit more digging to find out, okay, so how does this work? It translated into 10 minutes extra added to the ceremony time, so they could have 2 more readings, but they still weren't allowed it. Those readings still had to be prescriptive. They couldn't have anything that alluded to faith or spirituality of any kind. So just be really careful around the detail of that. If you do go to a registrar and they say, oh yes, we can offer a celebrant style ceremony, approach with care and find out exactly what that means.
I don't know whether it's the same across the UK or across the country, but I know when I got married, I didn't know who was going to be leading my ceremony for the legal registrar-led bit until a few weeks before. And for me, that was like, well, then I don't care because this person doesn't care about me. So,
well, I think that's just, that's the way the machine works. But that's very true. And actually, in some cases, you won't know who the registrar is until the day.
Yeah, that doesn't feel right to me. Like, hang on, you're about to do like this big thing that I've planned, that I've dreamed of. I've got all my family, I've got all my friends. Actually, I'd rather not have all my family and all my friends and hype it up when I don't know who's going to be sat there.
Well, and again, that comes back to that personal preference. If you just want a no-fuss, really quick ceremony, then that's fine because it doesn't really matter to you. But if it does matter to you, then absolutely, a celebrant-led ceremony will be bespoke. You will have worked with your celebrant for months, sometimes years leading up to your big day. They will have got to know you. The idea for me always is by the time I'm standing with you on the day of your ceremony, we are friends. We have built a relationship. I know what makes you tick. I know what makes you work as a couple. And I have hopefully encapsulated all of that into a really beautiful, totally gorgeous ceremony that fits you like the proverbial glove. That's what it should be.
I think that all makes sense to me, and I hope that we've kind of explained a bit about that for the legal process versus the what you want to do. But when we're looking at celebrants then, Vicky, how should people choose their celebrants?
It's really in the same way that you look at all your big wedding suppliers. Most celebrants I know will offer a free discovery call, and I would urge you to take that.
Absolutely, for every single supplier. If you can get them, you should speak to them.
Why wouldn't you? For goodness sake. And I know people are busy, but I think, by all means, go and have a look at websites, go and have a look at people's social media. If you can get word of mouth recommendations, I think that's worth its weight in gold. Particularly with celebrants, it's a very personal thing. You are going to be telling them probably more than any other wedding supplier that you come into contact. So you need to make sure, first and foremost, you're really comfortable with them. And
I guess as well, it's really lovely, as a celebrant, you'll know this better than I do, but you become part of their family so much so that you find yourself doing other ceremonies for them, and like maybe they're naming
ceremonies. I've done funerals for people, sadly, who've lost grandparents or things when I've done their weddings. So you do, but I think do those discovery calls. Things like awards and whether they have a swanky website and really zappy sort of social media is nice, but fundamentally this is about a human connection.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it really has to you have to feel that.
Great.
And know what sort of ceremony you want, or if you don't, ask them and see what they offer as a sort of response.
So what is the process then of working with a celebrant? If you like, what do you need to do? What do you need to ask?
Well, from the very beginning, when you're sort of like auditioning celebrants, really, I think it is just tell them a little bit about what your vision for your ceremony is. and see what they come back with. And if they, if you immediately, you will know, I think, really quickly. I know who my couples are within sort of 3 or 4 minutes.
Yeah.
Because you just kind of go, yeah, I get you. I understand what you're wanting, and I think I can facilitate that. So I think wait for that little moment, and when you know you're cooking with gas, then you're into the process. And the process for me, it's not always the same, but I follow a general pattern. So first and foremost, after we've met and you've said, yes, we would like you to be our celebrant, and I said, brilliant, I would love to be your celebrant, I then usually send a couples questionnaire out.
Okay.
And I recommend with all my heart that you spend an evening either with a bottle of wine, a big pot of tea, whatever is your little tipple of fancy. Go through it, and most couples find it really, really interesting because I ask a lot of questions really to shortcut getting to know them. And some of the questions are quite deep and delving into their relationship. Where did you meet? How did you meet? And then what does marriage mean to you? What does your partner?
Okay.
What does
your
partner do for you that really touches you? What does your partner do that you love them in spite of? So it's quite sort of broad, and then some of it is more generic and more general about shared passions and interests and that sort of thing. So I always say take your time with that questionnaire. Most people come back and say, do you know what, that was really interesting, it prompted all sorts of conversations we didn't know we were going to have.
I think it's really lovely as well. There's moments in your wedding planning journey where you can kind of lose sight of why you're even getting married, what you're getting married, like what is this? And that's a really lovely moment to be able to go, let's sit down, let's do this together. It's a bit like another moment I think is quite similar to that is choosing songs to put on a playlist.
Absolutely.
It's those things that go, oh yeah, remember why we're like, this is why we're here, this is why we're doing it.
I really love you.
So actually you're all right. Yeah. Cool. So filling in the form, like getting to know each other.
The questionnaire is I think is quite an interesting thing for me and for them. Then after that, I would normally suggest we have quite a lengthy meeting, ideally in person, and usually I ask couples to set aside at least 2 hours for that.
Cool.
Because that's when we really plan out their ceremony, and I always kind of think of it as it's a bit like baking a cake, if I could bake, which I absolutely can't. But it is sort of like taking all the ingredients that you think you might want to include in your ceremony and coming up with something that really works. I create a showstopper, basically. I was thinking about this because actually I was revisiting a ceremony I did for a couple of years ago, and this is the list of ingredients that they gave me. These were the things that they wanted in their ceremony: love, obviously. Absent friends, because they had 2 or 3 people that couldn't be there, and then they had a couple of people who were no longer with us, but who had been important to them. By that I mean grandparents who had given them the most wonderful example of what a really good marriage was.
Okay.
So we found a way to include that. Then we got off piece slightly. Obviously, they're friends and humour. Morrissey was an ingredient, like you do. Literature.
Yeah.
France. Adventure. The beach. Ritual. And children. So they were the sort of literally, they were the bullet points I had. All of those things they somehow wanted to weave in. They also wanted a couple of their friends to do readings. They didn't know which readings, so I was able to sort of steer them towards some things.
And so you can kind of go, do you know what, here's all this, let's talk, let's get to know you. Then you can give them a direction of how that could flow, how that fits in,
absolutely.
write them the script, write them.
So it's a direction of travel. And once we've got all of that, we then sort of produce a ceremony script that really underlines the significance of what you're doing, that tells your story, and that looks to your next chapter as a married couple. It's
cool.
It's celebratory, it's love-filled, it's absolutely wave your knickers in the air, joyous.
Knickers in the air.
Knickers in the air, we love that, we love that.
So there's loads of advantages then to having a celebrant-led wedding. What's the difference? So you do vows, you do declarations.
Well, that's down to the couple. So some couples like to write their own vows or promises, and they don't show them to each other. They
I like that. I didn't show mine.
And that for some couples is absolutely right. There are others who may be a bit shyer, and not, just would prefer to just be a little nod to tradition and to sort of answer, I do or I will, and in which case I help them. I write the questions that I will ask them and they just respond to. But there's no right or wrong. It's exactly what you want. You know, if you want to make promises or declarations to each other, gorgeous. If you just want to affirm, you know, your responses to the questions that I ask you, that's okay too. Really.
Yeah. I mean, I had a couple last year who did a first look, and so they saw each other before the ceremony just so they could kind of
connect
and get those nerves out of the way. I've got a couple this year who are actually doing a kind of after ceremony mini vow sharing.
Lovely.
Because they don't want to do it in front of everyone. No. They want to just do it alone. So they're going to have the ceremony, they're going to get married, then they're going to go and spend like 15, 20 minutes together and they're going to read each other their vows.
I think that's gorgeous.
I think it's lovely. It's a lovely way of doing it. And it just, their celebrant is making room for that within their ceremony to just let people know, do you know what, they are going to do this, but they really want to do this together.
Yeah. And that's the other thing with the celebrant. You know, most celebrants I know will only ever take one ceremony a day. So if you book a celebrant, and certainly when you book me, I am yours for as long as you need me on that day. Yeah. And if you want to have an interval of sort of half an hour and then do something sort of added on, or you want me to stay and do master of ceremonies for you, for your speeches and that sort of thing, absolutely, that's, you know, that's not a problem at all.
So we've got unrestricted time, unrestricted content, location. We can go anywhere, and it's
absolutely
bespoke to you.
Yeah, but that's an interesting thing about location. You know, if you have a registrar, you either go to the registry office or they come to you, but it must be a licensed venue. So with a celebrant, you don't have to have a licensed venue. You can go to the beach, you can go to the pub, you can go to the duck pond, you can go to a stately home that isn't licensed. You absolutely, literally, the world is
so
your
we can
oyster.
wave our knickers in the air at the beach.
Yes, and who doesn't love waving their knickers in the air at the
beach? Brilliant.
But fundamentally, I think, you know, the important thing to remember with your ceremony is that it should never, ever be the boring, talky bit before the party starts. It should be the start of the party. So, you know, give it due consideration. And whatever type of ceremony you go for, whether you go down a simple registrar-led, a faith-led or a celebrant-led, just really remember that your ceremony, your wedding ceremony, is what your wedding hangs on.
Wildly Wed, the real wedding planning podcast.
So each episode we do the top tips, and we love to get our suppliers on and the people that we've worked with, people we know. And this episode we have a top tip from Jason Williams Photography. Over to you, Jason.
My advice, my top tip for wedding couples getting married, is to make a promise to each other that you're going to spend time together on your wedding day. Number of weddings that I shoot where couples, after they get married, they do the confetti thing, go in separate directions and then talk to their friends and hang out with their family and things like that. I always say to couples, make sure you make time for each other. Go and hang out together. Make a little promise to each other that you will spend as much of the day together as you can. Because for one, it makes my job a lot easier. I can get lots of nice natural photos of the two of you having a good time. But also, the day after the wedding, so many couples will say, oh, we hardly saw each other, or we didn't speak to each other. So yeah, make time to hang out together. It's an easy one, but it's a good one.
Thank you, Jason. That's absolutely fab. So now we're going to go into our sustainability tip. Keshira.
Well, I think we're going to talk about second-hand outfits, really. Charity shops.
Yes.
I love a little walk around a chazza. We do in the South Coast. We do seem to have a delightful amount of charity shops. And I think lots of them do have bridal departments now. We've got vintage charity shops as well. So you can get a stunner of a vintage wedding dress. One of the photographers I know collects a few vintage items as she goes around for photography shoots. She got a wedding dress the other day for £25. And
wowza.
It is beautiful. And obviously, it's charity, so you're doing something for a good cause. So having a think about sustainability, thinking about where you're getting your outfits from, whether you can reuse. For example, I wore shoes that I've had for years that I knew were comfortable, so I didn't need to go out and buy something new in that account. But also looking at kind of dresses and alterations. Dresses are worn once sometimes, you pay for the alterations, you can spend thousands of pounds on your dress, and suits as well. You can either hire,
Yeah,
which
that's
is a
a good
more
point.
sustainable option, or you can buy, but just try and make sure it's something that you can reuse. So my wedding dress designer, and you know what, I'm going to give her a shout out, Poppy Perspective. And Finny from Poppy Perspective designs the most incredible dresses. They're all using vintage materials. She also, not only does she make the dress, she then turned it into a top and a skirt for me.
Oh my goodness.
To be able to wear.
But what was
after.
yours originally? Tell us that.
It was a vintage piano shawl. So I'd love to know where it was. I'd love to know, like, was it in some kind of like really high-end hotel or...
Oh, I think yours was in a stately home.
Yeah.
Or a castle.
Oh, I thought you were going to say the opposite. I was like, was it in like a dive bar somewhere?
Yours was definitely in a castle.
I love it. But that's, a couple of ideas on sustainability is think about where your outfits come from and how you can rewear.
Perfect.
And then our DIY tip for this episode, please, Vicky.
Well, I've sort of stolen this off a couple I worked with. We were talking about confetti. They wanted to have dried petals and they were going to buy little confetti cones to put them in. And then the bride actually had a little bit of a stroke of genius. She and they're both really keen, I'm trying to think of the right word, walkers, orienteering, proper
Ramblers?
walking. No, it's more than rambling. They're proper like
they like
hikes, you know.
walking.
But they get the maps out and all that sort of thing. So they found some vintage maps and they made their confetti cones out of those because that was just a really
cute.
nice tie-in. But it was also DIY to a degree sustainable because they weren't buying something new. But I just thought you could whatever the couple is interested in. If they're music lovers, you could use sheet music.
Yeah.
If they're if they're into their books and literature, you could use old books to make them.
I think actually one of my couples did exactly this with old books because what they asked for as gifts is they asked everyone to gift them a second-hand copy of their favourite book. And they also did exactly this and made their confetti cones out of books.
Beautiful. I just think it's a really lovely little way to kind of tie in a nod to either your relationship or a shared passion or interest. It's sustainable and it's something you can do yourself so you keep your costs down. Winner, winner, flipping chicken dinner.
Lovely. And we're going to wrap up this episode. We've done a lot of talking about legal things and non-legal things and
We've done a lot of talking about love.
And next time we are going to talk about food and drink. So I'm spending a lot of time at the moment helping couples with calculations on alcohol volumes or food volumes, thinking about the style of food, how we set it up, how much you need to feed people, things like that. So we're going to talk about food and drink next episode.
And I will do a lot of research into eating and drinking.
We shall eat
That's
and drink.
my contribution.
Yes, lovely. So we will see you next time.
We will see you next time. In the meantime, you can find us at Wildly Wed Pod, the website wildlywedpod.co.uk, and you can listen to us on Spotify and Apple Music and YouTube.
Woo! Thanks, guys.
Cheery bye.
Bye.
Say I do to the Wildly Wed podcast. Follow us on Insta at Wildly Wed Pod.